Hey guys, and welcome back to another Otome Game Jam game for 2024. This one is called Snow White Ashes. This game starts one winter night where you find a hunter in the woods. Is a man so warm and charming you feel as if you've known him your whole life, but appearances can be deceiving. You'd know that well, wouldn't you? So, this is a dark fairy tale romance where hunter meets hunter and beauty is only skin deep. So, this is the demo has 21,000 words, so about 1 to 2 hours depending on how fast we read. Only one ending and 3 unlockable bonus scenes. The artwork and illustrations are all hand drawn, and the piano based soundtrack is original. The content warnings. So the warnings have a suggestive / non-explicit sexual content and themes of toxic, abusive relationships, blood, death, and light horror elements. If that's something that's not up your alley, then do not continue forward. With that said, let's continue. I like the little clicker. It's different. It's like it reminds me of a tentacle. I don't think it's a tentacle. It's probably like a leaf or something. I walk through an ashen wood alone. Frozen earth crunches, crick, crack beneath my feet. Fat, blurry snowflakes fly by, aglow with the moon's bright light. I could never truly be lost, not on a night like this, when she shines, so round and full, gazing down from the winter sky above. Still, I'd best look like I am. I meander through ashen trails, between the birches, silver girths stripped with dark, around the trunks of pines that breach the sky, boughs buried with snow. I walk between the shadows, slip through pools of light and dark as if I have somewhere to be, but no knowledge of what path might take me to it. All the while I wrap myself in a cape of red wool, pulling its rough spun fabric and fine needlework tight around my shoulders. My hands I rest inside thick sheepskin gloves. Even with the snow in the mountains and the mountain air in my face, the thrill of the hunt keeps the bite of cold at bay. My heart beats with an unfamiliar feeling, a pounding, jittering rhythm. I shiver with excitement. I hope whatever's out there mistakes it for fear. I sink my hands deep into my pockets, deep into the pockets of my skirts, running my gloved fingers along the edge of the deadly sharpened point I carry. In a strange way, it feels more totem than item, than weapon. I suppose I seek no ordinary prey. I almost smile. Like my quarry, how strange to think that I too might hide my fangs. And so I wander on, trembling like a newborn lamb. I wonder how the beast might appear. Would it call out to me in a voice nectar sweet, promising shelter? Would it lure me to its mountain lair, whispering honeyed words as it led me to a place where no screams can echo? Would it stalk me patiently, waiting for the moment I collapsed, cold, exhausted in the snow? As I wander and wonder, I find myself growing impatient, the cause of my shaking turning from thrill to frost. When would it appear? Would it appear? Am I not the image of the perfect prey? I'm running out of time. No such vexations are a luxury I can't indulge in. I cannot rush this. I need my mind clear. Surely there is some way of drawing its attention to me until it can no longer look away. I feel in my pockets for the small sharp knife I'd used to whittle my weapon to its deadly point. What simpler way to entice a beast than with iron freshly drawn? But did I need to go so far? Perhaps it was not flesh it was hungry for. Perhaps I simply needed to call out to it. Draw blood or sing? I'm gonna draw blood. I draw the short knife from its sheath and roll up my sleeve. Without hesitation, I press the blade against the back of my forearm, watching as a thin line of crimson blossoms against my flesh. The pain that comes is a sensation I'd long forgotten. I almost cry out in surprise. Hastily, I take a long ribbon from my hair and wrap it tightly around the fresh wound. Red against red, it entwines around my arm, like the bark around a birch's trunk, like the skin of an apple peeled away with a knife. A sudden sound echoes from the distance, shaking me from my thoughts. I turn. No longer do I hear the wind through the trees, the hooting of an owl, or the scurrying of a squirrel. It is as if the world has gone completely silent and still, save for a pair of carefully approaching footsteps. It is seconds longer before I see it, a pinprick of light in the distance, a blur of white like the snow swirling around me. Gradually it comes closer, blinking, flickering, bright. All the while I stay still, so still like my heart has forgotten its beat. Closer it draws, closer still, until finally I make out its face, framed in white, lock eyes with it. With him. I can't move or turn away. I can't even breathe. That eye stares back at me with so deep a green. "Are you lost?" he says. Light and like a spell broken, I shake out of my daze, the wind and the sound of the night roaring in my ears. His voice cuts through it all, clear as a bell. "Are you hurt?" The figure wears the skin of a man. A skin so impossibly fair, it reminds me of the broken statue of an angel I once saw in a ruined castle. The surface of its marble pallor, cold as ice when I brushed it with my fingertips. How flawlessly smooth, how otherworldly, that lonely thing left behind in a place of broken granite and brittle stone. I wonder if the being before me is as cold to the touch. He dresses from head to toe in white, shrouded in white, from his fine wool coat to his fur-trimmed cape and soft leather gloves. Even his hair, cascades of gentle curls that frame his face, shines silver, a radiant halo lit from the glow of the lantern he carries in his hand. The other he extends to me. "Are you lost?" he asks again. "I won't hurt you. I'll see you to safety, I promise." The sound of his voice makes all the worry in the world melt away. It is so musical, so warm and calming, like liquid honey. It takes all my will not to take his hand and offer all at once. I like making saves. Who are you? I'm not lost. Who are you? Who are you? I ask. Simply a traveler passing through, he says with the faintest hint of a smile, soft, gentle, unthreatening. If I were naive, I would take his answer without questions at all. But I am not. Here, alone in the woods, alone. Alone in the woods at night? I could ask the same for you, demoiselle. Demoiselle? I am sorry, I don't know. Why ever did you wander here? I was searching for something. Whatever it might be, you've come far. The nearest village is hours away. Have you a place to shelter for the night? Night. No, I say as I quiver, as I fill my voice with the trembling of a lost, vulnerable thing. Lead me away. You have nothing to fear and everything to gain. Please, come with me. I'm sojourning not far from here. You can share my fire and stay the night in safety. I suppose I can't refuse such a kind offer, I reply, letting relief wash over my words. Show me your true face. Show me your fangs. Then please, good sir, lead the way. With his free hand, he offers me his arm. I hesitate. Such closeness would avail me to my weapon, but just as easily put me at his mercy. How quickly could he strike back? With what strength could he stop me if I failed? I desperately want to take his arm. We're taking the arm. I reach for his outstretched hand. My fingers linger on the gloved ones for only a moment before he links his arm through mine, sweeping his cloak around the both of us in one elegant motion. Cute. I cannot help but gasp. Forgive me if I startled you. I thought you'd be warmer this way. I'm fine, I stammer, digging my other arm deep into my pockets, gripping my weapon tight. His wool cloak and warm furs around my shoulders do keep away the cold. But I feel no warmth from him, no blush across his pallid cheeks, not one breath from his lips fogging in the night air. He smells of incense and pine, and faintly the metallic tang of iron. I wonder if I've made a mistake. My heart hammers as I walk beside him, its beat an unfamiliar drumming in my chest. Thankfully, he slows his stride to match mine. I take a deep breath and keep myself steady, staying alert as he leads me onward through the trees. It does not seem he will strike me here. I must be patient. I will wait. Might I ask your name? He says, after we have walked some steps from the clearing. I've worn names like they were ribbons in my hair, dozens of names in all colors and shapes. To give one away now would be a frivolous thing, but names, even false ones, create familiarity, bonds. Would it be wiser to keep my cards close, heart closed? We're gonna tell him our name. Or whatever it may be. You may, of course. My name is... Alessa. My name is Alessa. Alessa, he repeats, savoring each syllable. That's lovely. He sounds like he means it, like there's a heart that still beats beneath his borrowed skin, that flutters at the sight of goodness and beauty, that thrums at the sound of a maiden's name. And yours? I ask. Gabriel, he smiles. Like the old angels, I murmur. If I were naive, I would wonder if he is as old enough to remember the angels from the days long before the mists descended, before any gods and their icons who watched from above fled as the undead and unsated plunged the earth into pestilence and death and rot. I wonder, had he ever plucked an apple from the branches of Elysium, tasted its sweet flesh? But I know better. My parents were fond of the old tales, both of them for different reasons, he says with a wistful smile. What reasons? My father valued the strength of divinity. My mother valued their tales of virtue. A name can be a gift, and I treasure mine, as I treasured their memory. You must miss them. I do, he replies softly. I wait, but he does not continue. It's not enough. I need more. Show me what lies beneath your skin. Show me the beast that you are. Now that you've asked something of me, I say, I believe it's only fair I ask you a question in turn. Very well, then ask away. We're going to ask about his purpose. You said you're a traveler, but why here? Why these mountains, this forest? I often come to the mountains to hunt. I love the air here, the pristine wilderness. Of course you would, you wild thing. But sir, your clothes are too fine for a mere huntsman. You look fit to be, well, if not a prince, then a knight of the Queen's Guard at least. The Queen? There is no queen that rules these lands, unless you speak of the Mist Queen. The Mist Queen, a figure shrouded in fog, in mystery like her name, whispered around campfires and village squares, in sober tones and drunken ones, in awe and reverence, but most often, in fear. I've seen her nights before, marching in the wilds, their pyres burned on the hillside for days. Do you believe that she's lived since the dawn of time? That she bathes in the blood of men to keep her beauty? Not for a moment. I laugh. You speak as if you know her. Would you be afraid if I did? If I were a servant of the Queen? I'm gonna say no. I would call you a spinner of tall tales, good sir. I can scarcely believe she's an immortal at all. The Mist Queen and her Ashen Prince, they sound more like fairy tales than living, well, unliving people. After all, who can remember a time before the mists fell? Who can say whether the undying still walk this earth? Yet, if you were only a servant, merely a pawn, I would think her unfit to be queen of anything at all. How poor her sense of virtue is. You believe me to be virtuous? Well, here you are. helping a poor lost damsel in the snow, I laugh. It's only human to help others in need. I shake my head. Some would disagree. Some would seek an advantage over others. That is human nature, my hunter. In any case, there is something gentle about you. I cannot think to place you among her scores of blood-soaked nights. He looks at me for a long time. I wonder if I've said too much. You're a strange girl. A strange, bold girl. A girl. I'm well past 20 summers. But do not think to ask how many, gentle hunter. I shall not. Have you a family, then? I did, though I was a stranger to them at first. They welcomed me into their home and became just like family to me. I loved them very much. But those days are gone now. He gives me a look of sympathy. I'm so sorry. I'm like you. I once had a wife and son, but plague took them from me. I'm sorry for your loss. I consider what to say next. I'm just gonna just fill up all the pages. Ask about his past or his family. Past. Have you always been a hunter? No. In fact, for much of my life, I hated the thought of harming anything, be it man or animal. My tale is truly a dull one, demoiselle. We have nothing but time. I wait for him to continue as we walk. My father was a knight-at-arms, but he died without land or fortune. I was very young, and so was my mother. And so my mother was left to raise me alone in a humble countryside town. I knew from an early age I didn't want to live a martial life like my father, so I apprenticed a healer, then studied medicine as a young man. Eventually I returned to that small town, met and married a shepherdess with the loveliest smile in the world, and spent my days treating coughs and fevers, making poultices and I'm sorry, I don't know how to spell that. Say that word. Mending wounds until the plague. I finish. He is silent for some time. It was a horrible, cruel thing. To call it a sickness would be to call the ocean a mere pool. It did not spare any of its victims. It turned healthy, smiling folk into dying husks within days. I tried to save them. You did all you could. I can't imagine how awful it must have been. I lost myself for a time, and after that, I found I could not return to the healing arts. I could not mend another bone, touch another skin without feeling the rot beneath my fingertips. That's terrible. I'm sorry. Even the wind is silent as we walk. The crunching of our footsteps is the only sound in the night. It's a relief when he turns the conversation away. I've spoken enough of unpleasant matters. Tell me something about you. What do you enjoy? Okay. Needlework. I'm skilled with a needle, if I might say so. Your clothing? Did you make these? I did. I embroidered them as well. I feel his gaze run over the moons and flowers stitched into my clothes, and feel a sudden warmth creep up through my skin to be the object of his stare. It is truly a lovely work. I feel I could live a dozen lifetimes and never hope to match your skill. I laugh. You do not need lifetimes for it. It only takes patience and a willingness to persist. Even if you'll accidentally stab yourself countless times. What would you do if I had lifetimes? If you could walk the earth without fear of death or aging? I would look for someone to spend it with. I would learn all that I could. I like the first option, I'm not gonna lie. I would look for someone to spend my days with, that we might share in all the joys of the world together. But you, deathless, would outlive them, watch them grow old and wither away at your side. Then I would spend my days searching for a way to share with them the gift I was given. All while their precious time slipped away, all while seconds to you, to them would be days, months, and years. Forgive me, I've burdened us with heavy topics again. But I thank you for your insights. Of course, gentle hunter. I search my mind for another question, another distraction, when suddenly a howl, long and low, cuts through the night. Wolves. Stay calm, he says in a hushed tone, folding his cloak around me as I clutch his arm. I did not realize I'd gripped him so tightly. I am calm. I should be calm. But the fear that I feel, it isn't mine. It runs beneath my skin like a rapid coursing river. It twists inside the cage of my chest. I will my pulse to slow, but it does not. My mind cannot quell the instincts of a living heart. The howls grow louder, closer. I can feel them ringing in my ears. Your scent is too strong, I hear him murmur. He searches through his coat for something, a small pouch, then pours its contents over the lantern. The flame burns brighter as a thick, earthy scent fills the air. It smells of ash and smoke, iron and dust. This way, he says, leading me by the arm. We come to a large pine, its ancient trunk at least 3 grown men wide. With a firm, but not ungentle motion, he presses me against its trunk, sweeping his cloak around us. I feel the rough bark on my back, through the wool of my cape. Feel his arms around my shoulders, holding me tight. It takes all my will not to struggle, not to scream. It's all right, he says, melodious, soothing, a shepherd calling to a lamb. This will hide your scent. Listen to my voice. Hold on just a little while longer. This close, I could hear his heartbeat beneath his chest. If only he had one. I could burn beneath his arms, if only they were not so cold, cold to the bone. We stand there for what feels like an eternity, before the howls grow silent, and the only voice left on the wind is the whisper of the trees. I break free of him as soon as he lets me go, shaking. Too close. Not yet. Not here. Forgive me, it's not far ahead now. Can you walk the rest of the way? I'm fine, I say, steadying myself, fighting the quiver in my voice. Onward, I follow as he leads me through the trees. The cottage comes into view as we turn the bend, almost as if conjured from the mist itself. It is a small, quaint thing, a lonely, strange thing to see, placed there like it was plucked from a fairy tale. Its wooden walls are aged but sturdy, its sloping roof coated in a fresh snow. It should be the home of a living, breathing woodsman, not a creature of the night. I had never guessed you would hide yourself in a place like this. It's beautiful, I say. It's the only place in the world I truly feel safe. Its heavy door creaks open as he leads me inside. The cottage is small, with short square windows and low walls, but appears well kept, a solitary home. Strings of dried herbs and fresh mint, horsetail, apples hang from the ceiling. A table and stool sit at its center, stacked with clay pots and metal bowls. A stone hearth covers one wall, a narrow bed lined with furs sitting against the other. A bookshelf filled with a dozen or so well-worn tomes stands proudly in a corner, even as it teeters beneath jars of more herbs and flowers. The scent of incense, sweet and heady, fills my nose as he lights the kindling in the hearth. The embers cast his skin aglow, his silver curls and pallid features painted softly in a warm light. He unfastens his long snow-white cloak and tosses it onto the stool. Carefully, slowly, I slip my hands free from my sheepskin gloves. I feel his gaze, his green eye watching me as I unravel my shawl from my pale throat. My fingers, still numb from the cold, fumble with the clasp on my cape. "May I?" he asks, stepping towards me. I nod, shaking. His hands, ever gloved, are deft, swift, a surgeon's hands. They free my shoulders of the deep red wool, set the fabric aside on the narrow bed. His gloved hand lingers near my collar. I do not move an inch. I scarcely breathe. Show me your true self. Show me what you are. He brushes my cheek, a whisper of a touch, like he is afraid to hold me, like I am a statue that could crumble away beneath his fingers. "May I?" he asks again, barely audible. "Yes," I whisper back. He brushes a lock of my dark hair behind my ear, then gently, slowly brings his lips to my skin. They are so soft. His touch is like the snow that lands on my face, carried by the winter wind. Cold but light, feather light on my cheek. Gentle, far too gentle. I don't want this delicate tenderness from him. I am not a fragile thing. That's cute. I fold my hands around his neck, feel the downy softness of his hair as I slip my fingers through its ashen strands. He wraps me in his arms, holds me tightly, kisses my hair, trails his lips down my neck. I shiver. I tremble against him as his gloved hands run through my tresses, down my spine, feeling for the laces of my bodice. He pushes me gently onto the furs, turns me onto my stomach as he parts my hair. Found you, my queen. I yelp as he pulls my hair sharply back from my head. Tears bead in my eyes as his hand presses against my skull. He holds me still as I thrash beneath him, traces with his fingertips that mark my skin I'd forgotten lay at the base of my neck. The crooked crescent moon that I'd carved into my flesh with a sharp iron knife. Might I humbly ask as your loyal consort? He whispers softly into my ear. The fire crackles and roars, casting flickering shadows around us, but I feel nothing but ice run through my veins. There is no hunger in his voice, no warmth, no desire, only white, cold fury. Did you think you could fool me, Celine? Who? I don't know what you mean. Let go of me. Give this up, Celine. I've known you far too long for a new skin to deceive me. Why are you here? What game are you playing? I swallow and go still, trying in vain to slow my racing heart. Steadying my voice, I say, "Let go of me, my gentle hunter. I can hardly run from you here, can I?" I feel him hesitate for a breath, a moment that feels like a century before he loosens his hold on my tresses, lifts his weight from the bed, then stands. The relief I feel is short-lived. I curse myself that I shiver still at the memory, the whisper of his touch, that I'd lost my own senses, forgot for a moment who I was in this body, that I'd mistaken his tenderness for anything other than the luring of his prey. I shift upright on the bed. I don't trust my legs not to buckle under their own weight. He stands a few feet away from me, a gloved hand over his pale lips as a sigh escapes them. Yet he does not need to breathe. How dramatic. Does looking at me, even in this borrowed form, disgust you so? Would you care to enlighten me now, my queen? He asks, folding his arms. I take another deep breath. Refuse. Okay. I could ask the same of you, my hunter. Why don't you tell me, dear, why you're here alone in the mountains? Away from my castle, inviting pretty young things to your bed. I did not expect him to flinch at my words. The anger and pain that flashed through his face almost make me regret them. You hardly count as a maiden, sweetheart, he says sharply. And when did you have any right to criticize me? I never said a word about the scores of bloodied hearts you left in your wake. That is not what this is about. Then what is this about? Did you follow me? Did you think you could have your way with me if you stitched yourself a pretty new face? I did no such thing. I know your victims have to die before you sew into them. Did you murder an innocent girl for this petty plan? That final line makes my borrowed blood boil beneath my skin. You. How dare you, Gabriel? Have I ever been so callous and unmerciful? Have I ever treated humans like my playthings? This girl was dead when I found her. He laughs. It is a short, dry, hollow laugh, like the winter wind knocking against the walls. You haven't changed at all. A plaything? Is that not how you treat her now, wearing her corpse like a summer gown? I could try to calm the iron that pounds through my veins, the anger that courses with it, but I do not. I cannot. To have a heart unstill is to have thought and feeling ring through every beat. I let my long-buried rage, my pain bleed through every vein in my being. Aren't you curious how she died, my loyal consort? I ask, mirroring his bitter, mocking tone. Why? Why should I be? She was killed, I seethe, by a beast wearing the skin of a man. One of our kind. His expression freezes. And she was not the first. Countless maidens have gone missing from the mountains, turning up dead, drained and cold. Colder than your eyes are now. And now, who should I find here but you? You think I did this? You think I killed them? Have you lost your mind? Why would you hide yourself in the wilderness? Why would you disappear for months? Why wouldn't you tell me where you'd gone? He goes quiet again, staring at me with a deathly gaze. His next words are nearly a whisper. But if words had weight, his would be heavier than a stone. How dare you, Celine? How long have you known me? How many centuries have I followed you loyally? I never forced you to serve me. I did not beg you to follow me. I always gave you a choice. You didn't give me a choice when you turned me into this, he hisses, motioning to himself as he parts his hair from his face with a violent gesture. I look away. I cannot stare back at those eyes. He's right, after all. After all this time, you still despise me. I don't despise you. I despise myself for believing that you trusted me. I do not reply. I hug my knees, still shaking, cursing my weakness, cursing the blood flush beneath my skin, warm and flowing and despicably human. What was I thinking? I thought I had prepared myself well. I am the Mist Queen, a woman who has walked the earth for a millennium, wearing as many faces as the moon. It should be child's play to appear to him an innocent maiden, test his loyalty, his intentions, discern his innocence or his guilt. And then should I have found him fallen from grace, then I would fulfill the promise I make to each and every one of my faithful vassals, should ever their hunger outweigh their humanity. Yet with him, could I fulfill the oath I made so long ago, when I brought him back from death, ash cold in my arms, even knowing he could now be a monster, changed from the loyal knight I knew? When I look at him now, I cannot see anything but the face of the kind young doctor I met in that sleepy town by the wood. The face of a man I loved lifetimes ago. Perhaps the Mist Queen could steal her undead heart, cast aside her feelings. But foolishly, I had forgotten one thing when I donned this skin. Flesh weighs down the spirit. Memories housed in a foreign mind may as well be half-remembered dreams. I do not feel like a monarch, a queen, because at this moment, I am not. Now I am a girl of barely 20 summers, trapped with a man glaring death at her, though his face is of an angel's, and his voice honey-sweet haunts her dreams. Just being in his presence fills her, me, with nothing but longing. How could I not hunger so desperately for his touch? How could I not wonder at the thoughts behind the mask of his eyes, if there was still a place for me inside his unbeating heart? My heartbeat thumps so loudly in my ears as we watch each other in silence. Finally, he takes his long cloak from the stool, fastens it around his shoulders, and moves towards the door, cracking it open as the night air creeps its tendrils inside the cabin. Where are you going? I shift, trying weakly to stand up. To see what you've said is true. Liar. I know it when you avoid my gaze when you speak. You can't bear to be near me. You're leaving. Now. I'll return. He pauses by the doorframe, silhouetted against the snow, and inhales sharply. Stay put. There's still much I would ask you once you've cooled your head. Wait. He slams the door shut with a loud rattle. I don't hear his footsteps disappear into the cold, masked by the winter wind. I don't hear his footsteps disappear into the cold, masked by the winter wind. Once I've cooled my head, you with your bitter sighs, Gabriel, you need as much as I do to calm yourself. I take a deep breath and another, trying to push the thoughts from my mind. I fight the tears threatening to spill from the helpless girl's eyes, my eyes. I grit my teeth and finally pull myself upright. My legs wobble, but are steady enough to walk around the cramped cabin. It's easier to breathe without him near me, easier to think. I look at my surroundings. The fire still burns, offering precious warmth. Outside the short, square window, the pines and birches bow in the wind. The night sky still swirls with snow. I think of the wolves, of yellow eyes and howls filling the shadows. I will not get far if I try to leave. Perhaps I could find something here. Perhaps there was evidence in this place he safeguarded so well of his guilt. I had yet to find my proof after all, and I would not hurt him without it. I could not. I know that in my heart now. Yet, my deception has already failed. So much for this lovely skin. Am I merely fooling myself now? Was it time to abandon this body? Was it worth the risk to brave the night and its dangers to retrieve my old skin? Would I get another chance to if I simply stayed put and waited? I'm gonna search the room. I decide to start by looking around the room. It is a picture of a warm and solitary house, if cramped and unkempt. Did he lure any victims here? Did any proof remain of lives taken and iron drained? The pain that flashed through his eye was real. I know him that well, at least. I know his every look, the shape of his mouth, the tilt of his head, how his unwavering gaze burns in my dreams. But what was the cause of that anguish? Anger or guilt? If my gentle wolf is not a killer, then what secrets does he keep? I sift through the piles of garments and furs strewn about, his clothes worn and mended over the years with a familiar crooked stitching. I toss them aside indignantly. My hunter has dexterous hands, even through his thick white gloves, but how he'd shake whenever he held a needle. I'd scoffed once when I saw how he struggled. Why should fabric trouble him when he'd once sutured flesh and sinew? He did not look at me nor speak to me for days. Some pieces are from recent decades, clean and neatly folded for once. I recognize each garment, cut and sewn by my own hand. A dark waistcoat I'd stitched with a pattern of overlapping feathers. A lace shirt I'd embroidered with tiny bell-shaped flowers and sickle-like leaves. How I nearly tore the skin off his back when he said he'd lost it. It almost feels as if the fabric in my hand is not clothing, but costume. A costume for a pretend prince in the awful play written of my unlife. But that's not untrue. Our second marriage was more false than the first. I think of his cold kisses on my back. I think of his cold kisses on the back of my hand, on my hair, whenever he parted from me for distant lands, whenever eyes were upon us. How well he played the part of the perfect and loving consort. How skillfully he hid his distaste for me. How adept he was at keeping his secrets. What secrets are you hiding, Gabriel? I sigh. There's nothing in the pile of clothing to suggest they belong to anyone but him. But just as I am about to set them aside, I notice something peeking out from beneath a moth-eaten coat. Gingerly, I fish it out. It appears to be a hard leather case. The straps that hold it closed are already loose. Cautiously, I pry it open. Inside it is an instrument, a wooden lyre carved with a pattern of graceful songbirds. It is no master craftsman work, but it was clearly made with a patient hand. Its surface is clean and polished. I pluck its strings. They are still tuned. I cannot stop the bitter feeling that swells in my throat as I hold this imperfect but beautiful thing in my hands. I don't remember the last time he so much as hummed a tune beneath his breath. He never sang for me, not when I begged. I thought he had given up his music, buried his songs along with his past. It hurts now to know that wasn't the truth at all, that it was only me he would not sing for. Who then? Who did you sing for out in the wilderness alone? Who gets to hear your precious songs? I imagine for a moment flinging the instrument into the fire, watching the precious wooden birds carved on its surface blacken and char in the hearth. A desire that only grows the more I look at it. I'm not doing it. I'm not burning it. I'm gonna frickin' save still, but I'm not gonna burn it. I stop that impulse before I do something I should regret. I look at the instrument and imagine him carving it, painstakingly with his careful gloved hands, staining the wood, stretching taut the strings. I imagine him tentatively plucking the notes, drawing the song from the carved bird's beak. I remember the other things I've broken and burned in front of him. On nights when I fed, when the memories were too much for my slow-beating heart to contain. Objects can always be replaced, I would say, more to console myself than him. Only once did I go too far. Only once did I take away something that could never be replaced. Though a lyre could be carved again, though it would feel satisfying to ruin it now, I know it would only lead to more regret soon after. I carefully shut the case and place it back beneath the pile of his clothes. I sit with my head against my knees for a long while, trying not to think, remember, or feel. Finally, I turn and glance at the shelf filled with the herb jars and piled tomes with a deep fatigue. Shaking off my weariness, I reach for a volume from the shelf. Its spine cracks as I open it. The pages are filled with his scrawling handwriting, notes and paragraphs in fading ink, nearly swallowing myriad sketches of plants and herbs. You never were one for keeping idle, were you? I set the books aside, sink down to the floor, bury my head in my arms, and lean back against the bed. It's the living blood addling my senses, I think, but I can't bear how much his presence fills the space. I can imagine him, bent over the teetering table, jotting something down with his perfect, elegant, gloved hands, laying his head on the pillow, listening to the mountain wind, eyes blinking closed, sleeping off the iron imbibed from spirits nowhere. Dreaming of something I can only guess at. For how many times have I heard him cry out in his sleep? It feels as if I am the intruder here. It feels as if this place itself is a piece of him I was never welcome to see. I continue my search without enthusiasm, finding no signs of any other inhabitants, willing or otherwise. It seems that no other soul has ever visited here, or that he cleaned after himself well. I stand up, only to collapse back onto the bed. The hours in the woods, the walk through the cold, the heated words, all have exhausted this weak and unfamiliar body. I need a moment's rest before I resume my search. I curse the iron, warm and flowing through my veins. The fire still burns in the hearth, and the furs are so soft. I only close my eyes for a moment. I stand in a long, empty hallway. Darkness is all around me, blacker than a night without a moon. A polished mirror stands in a gilded frame. I step toward it. My foot falls, making no sound. My face stares back at me. Ashen and pale, framed by dull dark hair, like a dim moon on a foggy night. My eyes are like slate, cold, gray, lifeless. I close them. When I open them again, she is gone. A new face stares back at me. A young woman with glossy black locks, bright red lips, and eyes that twinkle like jewels. Like what you see, my queen? Want to rip it off and wear it yourself? She asks, mouth twisting in a wicked smile. I step back from the mirror, but her voice still rings, growing louder. Do you remember my name, Celine? She asks. Do you remember the name of the corpse you stole from her grieving parents? Maya? I stammer. I had no choice. The girl in the mirror twists and morphs, screaming, laughing, flesh shifting and turning until her skin rests, finally in a shape far too familiar. Do you remember my name, Celine? Do you remember the name you borrowed when you stole my skin? Wore my flesh, played house with my corpse? Of course I remember. Your name was... We're gonna go with my friend's name, Zen. Sorry, Zen. Zen. What's his name? Edmund? The eternal dreamer. It fits him. He laughs, gently petting the sleeping lamb. Autumn, 336 years ago. Jeez. I was lucky, beyond lucky when I found this body. This poor woman, of course, was not. She'd slipped and broken her neck, falling from a muddy trail in the hills. A foolish risk to take, all for a helpless lamb. I could have drained her body dry, and oh, I was tempted. I was ravenous that day when I found her, full to bursting with iron. But I tempered my hunger. I stitched her back up, very, very carefully, until she looked as good as new, like she'd never so much as taken a tumble. I think I have an idea. I think I got it. I think I know what's up. Let's see if I'm right. Well, save for the crescent moon carved beneath the crook of her collar, like an old faded scar. Hungrier than ever in my brand new skin, I devoured the lamb. Then I walked through the hills, through the wood to her, now my home. With her flock all to myself, I would not go hungry for quite some time. She was an eccentric one, to say the least, this girl. Solitary and aloof, she kept to herself with only her prized sheep as company. The townsfolk whispered unkind things about her. She showed them little interest in turn. Who would notice if her mind and heart had turned? Her animals did at first, but they learned quickly to obey their new master. I had roamed for a very, very, very long time. Now to suddenly spend my days in a quaint countryside town, tending fluffy, fat, white sheep as the days and seasons passed me by. Such idleness was like Arcadia, pure, wonderful halcyon calm. My new form wasn't terrible to look at either. It was strange to see her stare back at me in the creek's surface, her large dark eyes and round freckled cheeks. But her hair was lovely, bright red like flames, like the fleeting leaves of autumn before they wither and cover the ground in muddy dying browns. Spring and autumn, I'd always loved the transitory seasons. Cool but bright, and unlike my kind, fleeting. Winter, then spring, then summer had all passed when he arrived. The greens had just begun to turn to gold, copper, and ruby. The nights bled longer into the days, sunsets and sunrises streaking through the sky like open wounds. Like many creatures that stalked through the waxing cold, I was hungry. Hungry for human blood. I thought he was a traveler. I had never seen his face before. I would remember it if I had. His steps were so light, I barely heard them sound throughout the forest trail. But I could hear his voice, clear as a bell, humming a small song to himself. I listened and watched him through the trees. He wore plain clothes, mended and remended with clumsy stitching. He was tall. His strides were long. His hair, too, was long and fell loosely behind his back, its silver strands framing his brow. How it shone in the evening sun, whiter than the fleece of a lamb. I waited as he drew near. And then I screamed. I didn't expect to slip and genuinely hurt myself. I didn't expect to need his help. It was your fault for distracting me. I said more to myself than to him. I'd kick you if it wasn't for this bloody sprain. I can't advise that, demoiselle. You'll hurt yourself again. He stops as I lean against him and mutter something unintelligible. Do you need to rest? He asks softly, voice tinged with concern. You've only just met me. Why do you care? Carry me back. I can't walk anymore. I didn't expect him to literally sweep me off my feet. I was joking. This is fine. This is fine, he says, as lightly as my body apparently weighs. You're like a feather. Just hurry back before it gets too dark. I'll be all right. The moon is full tonight, you see. The trees in the path up ahead. The trees in the path ahead clear their branches from the sky. As he walks, I look up and see her full, bright face shine down on me. Oh, my bad. So she is, I murmur. The lamb is much more weary than I am, forced to walk the long trail on its own legs. The falls fast asleep at its mother's side. What's his name? The stranger, no longer a stranger, asks. Who? This little one whom you went through so much trouble for, he replies, motioning to the slumbering lamb. I look up at the sky, at the moon and her stars, and say the first thing that comes to mind. Edmian. The eternal dreamer? It fits him. He laughs, gently petting its soft fleece. There's something beautiful about the sound of his laughter as it leaves his lips. It reminds me of the notes of a lyre, lovingly tuned, of a song I'd once heard in a time and place far, far from these sleepy woods. Perhaps it's the blood that flows within me, the fatigue of this human frame. Might was never the domain of the living that plays with my senses. It feels for a moment like I am standing inside a deep and pleasant dream. The wind gently caresses a strand of his long hair, silver as the moon above us, as he turns to me with a look of embarrassment. How silly of me. I asked for this young lad's name before yours, demoiselle. My name is Gabriel, he says warmly. And you are? The days grew colder and darker, autumn bleeding into winter. The old year breathed its last. A new one sprung from its ashes as the nights grew short. My body did not change, but the world around me did. The days grew warmer as the earth bloomed into spring, and then, finally, summer. Like the seasons, my aloofness at his presence gradually turned to acceptance. And then, before I knew it, fondness. Soon after, he was in my thoughts every night. Instead of the nightmares, the centuries of memories that tormented me in my sleep, I saw his face, smiling. I heard his voice, clear and lilting, soothing me with a gentle song. He had always smiled at me, even when I stared past him, stone-faced, arrogant, disinterested. But now, when I smile back, the way his eyes would shine and brighten his entire face, I felt that of all the people in the world, I was the only one you looked at that way. The day would come when he knelt before me on one knee. I can't marry you, I tell him, stealing my voice. I turn my back so he cannot see my face. Won't you tell me why? He asks quietly, with tenderness, without hurt. Because this body will wither soon when the blood of my flock runs dry, or the villagers find out what I am. Because to be at your side heightens that risk 100-fold. Because I am not among the living, though my cheeks grow red and my heart flutters against my will when I look at you, when I hear you speak these words. They make me forget what I am, make me wish for what I must never desire. I can't give you children. I know, but I'm not a lord or a prince. I don't need you to bear my flesh and blood. Besides, I know nothing can replace the lambs as your little ones. I wish I could tell you I tend to them so tenderly because they are my lifeblood. I hardly have the means to keep a hearth and home. You've seen the way I live. But you can stitch and sew like no one I've ever seen, and I'm a half-decent cook, at the very least. If only you weren't so sweet. I still cannot. Do you dislike me? No, spirits, If you don't feel the same about me, then I'll leave your sight at once and forever. You fool. I love you more than you could ever imagine. I love you more than the moon loves her fiery star, more than anything and everything I've ever held dear in the long centuries I've walked through mist and earth. I want so much to hold you and never let you go. Then don't torture me so. Please say yes. Please make me the happiest man in the world. If only I were myself, my true self, could I have refused you. But I was not. At that moment, I wore, and I was, the foolish young woman who loved you. Oh, this sucks. There was guilt in the back of my mind, in the far corners of my heart in the days that followed. Guilt, a foolish and human emotion. But I was so happy, I could bury it beneath the flood of joy that flowed through me, that poured from my heart like a fountain. It seeped back slowly, a poison in my veins on the eve we were wed. I knew that to take your hand, to walk this path, was to take a step I could not turn back. That perhaps the gods in their icons, if they ever lived, would not forgive. Yet I was steeped so much in sin and blood and cruelty already. I had taken so much, stolen so much, to continue my existence. But I did not merely wish to simply exist any longer. You made me wish For the first time since I had truly been alive. To live. Perhaps he sensed that hesitation, the feeble, silent cry of my conscience. We don't have to. We can wait if you're not ready. Why did his words only make me grow hungrier? I want this. I shut his soft, sweet lips with mine. The body that I wore when I spoke my vows to you was both living and unliving. A body that was not mine to live with, to love with. But the heart that beat like a butterfly's wings when you kissed me traced the crooked moon beneath my collar as you slipped free the laces from my wedding gown. It beat like my own, the skin that lighted like embers as you held me in your hands. Every inch of it felt like my own. I loved him too much to stop. I hungered more for his touch than the sweetest taste of iron on my tongue. Though the name he whispered into my ear was not mine, the tenderness with which he spoke it belonged only to me. What did it matter what shape I wore, what form his fingers traced, or gentle arms embraced? Your arms were made only to hold me. Your eyes were made only to behold me. Your heart should beat only if it loves me. There, lying my head against his chest, lulled by the rhythm of his gentle heart, I thought of my own body, my true body, lying cold beneath the earth. I wish that I could feel this warmth, this fragile thing that I had now in my hands. I would cling to it until death again parted me from him, until my unaging, undead form finally grew still. It would be a love as fleeting as a red leaf flitting through the autumn wind. Perhaps it was cruel of me to do so, but I could be no less callous than fate or time. Humans can hold memories for a lifetime, after all, yet they move ever forward. Because they must. Because that is what it means to walk among the living. He would live a long, storied life, and I would be a brief but cherished memory in his heart, just as I would hold him forever in my immortal and unbeating one. Or so I had thought. That night, cradled in his arms, I see the face of the girl whose skin I wear in my dreams, melting away into blood and bone. 333 years ago. So I kind of had a feeling that was what was going to happen, to a degree. Here was my initial thoughts. So my initial thoughts were, oh, wow, okay, so she's going to find the wife. But the difference that I had in my mind was she's going to find the wife and, well, she accidentally got herself killed. You know, she takes the skin In my mind, I had already thought that, oh, she's married and now she's basically an intruder. But no, it was not the case. And I don't know which one I like more. I think I like what happened in the game more than mine, because, that's just immediately what I thought of. But this really works well. I think it makes it more tragic. She's hiding her true self from him, never once admits what she truly is. Now, I don't know if she eventually admits or not. We're just gonna have to continue and figure it out. So let's continue. I smile now at the villagers when I walk through town. I no longer hum only to myself as I spin wool into thread and thread into cloth. I share my joy with the birds, the flowers, the lambs, him. Like fabled Arcadia or fair Elysium, my tranquil days pass by in peace. Yet sorrow does not temper joy. It only makes it grow sweeter by contrast. And sorrows do pass us. He loses a patient for the first time, a mother to a childbed fever. Soon, one of her sickly newborn twins follows her. How it eats at him, my poor, sweet, gentle lamb. I console him that day, as best I can. I have seen so much death, been the cause of it at times. I do not know what words he needs, but I hold him tightly and let him hold me. Then at night I lull him to sleep, slip from our bed and feed on the iron still sweet. Mother and son are buried together. Nobody notices that the corpses are lighter. Still it weighs on my beloved, in the days that follow, the image of that unbreathing babe, and the weak, weeping one left behind. And so, against the last fraying strands of my better judgment, I tell him, let us take in that child as our own. I sew the head of a small wooden doll, suturing the seam along its neck with a long red thread. It is a lamb. Its fleece is made of the softest wool I could spin. When I finish with its head, I take a thick black thread and give it new eyes, adding tiny white stitches for a twinkle in each one. Finally, I take another red thread for its mouth, stitching it a small, sweet smile. Every stitch must be perfect. It must be perfect. I work slowly and deliberately. I am careful, ever so careful not to prick myself. I never enjoyed the sight of the iron escaping this flesh, so I yelp with surprise when I notice him behind me. Spirits, why don't you make any noise when you walk? Did I startle you? He asks sheepishly. Just as I'm about to settle back into my chair with my needlework, a loud wail comes from the bedroom. And now you've woken him. I rush toward the wooden cradle in our chamber, lift the crying infant into my arms and rock him gently, saying, "Oh, hush now, my love. My little lamb, Mama's here. Holding him in my arms, I start to sing. Come to rest in my embrace. Let the moon hold you safe. In her light and her grace, should the clouds shroud your way, or the mist hide her ashen face, I shall guide you home in her place. The babe is fast asleep before I finish the last verse of the song. I set him down in his blankets and sigh, closing my eyes for a moment. As I stand, my beloved rests his head on my shoulder and holds me from behind. Nestled in his arms, I let him lead me back to the seat in front of the hearth. It feels so warm and blissful to be cradled myself. My love plants a kiss on my red hair before he settles beside me. Forgive me, he whispers. I just wanted to watch you work. You're forgiven, this time. But don't you dare sneak up on a woman with a needle again. He laughs very quietly, a sound sweeter than a lyre's tune, a robin's song. I shall not. I finish stitching the doll as we sit in each other's company. I thought I was deft at stitching wounds, he whispers, but I've never seen anyone as skilled with a needle as you. One of my many talents. Perhaps you could learn a thing or two from me. Humble as always, my darling. He laughs softly. I wish I could bottle that sound and listen to it for eternity. Once I am finally satisfied with my work, I check back on the babe, holding the doll in my hands. He is still sleeping soundly. You have a magic touch, my darling. He's yet to fall asleep so quickly when I sing to him. I smile. That's not true, my love. Who would dare slumber when you sing? The baby boy before me is so warm and small. He must dream so gently as his small chest rises and falls. His cheeks are pink and round, his short curls soft as down. A happy coincidence that his hair is as red as mine. I'd almost forgotten what my own dark locks looked like. I would miss this flame-colored hair, a silly thing to treasure, perhaps, among so many things more precious that I would lose. But I would always have a fondness for it now. As I watch him, the fullness in my heart unravels to something cold, gnawing and dark. I'd let myself forget for a moment and believe that he could truly be mine. Mine to nurture and love, to care for and watch over as he grew. My chest twists like a spike has been driven through it. I know it is wicked of me. Leaving him a widower is cruel enough. But now, a boy without a mother? At least they won't be alone without me, I think. As my beloved nuzzles my cheek, wraps his arms around me, I close my eyes. Even if it's for the briefest moment, for the first time since. No, even before I drew my last breath as my true self, I have a family. Just for this moment, they are mine, and only mine. I rest in their warmth, my beloved's arm around my waist. my son sleeping softly before me for just a little while longer. Finally, reluctantly, I break free. Watch over him while I run to the market, I whisper, carefully smoothing over my little one's blankets. Are you sure? I don't mind. I need some fresh air. I slip outside, but not towards the market square. An emptiness within me howls like an abyss, waiting to be fed. I am afraid I would devour both you and this child if I gave in to that hunger. "331 years ago. He injures his back in a careless accident while trying to repair the old fence. He did so against my protests. I just want to make certain nothing else gets to your darling lambs, he said. His words twist like a knife in my gut. How could I tell you the true beast that devoured them stands right here before you, her guilty eyes brimming with tears. As I help him wash that evening, he laughs and tries to reassure me, wincing sharply as he does. This is nothing to worry about, my love. I'm simply getting old. Look at my white hair. Oh, stop. Just be careful, please. I look down out of shame and see our reflection stare back at me in the water basin. He has only just turned 9 and 20, the same age that once long ago my true body met its end. My beloved wears his age beautifully, the glow of youth still alive in his skin, tempered by his calm and graceful manner. But the face that I wear looks not a day over 19. I have not changed as the years passed us by, and I will not change. The unkind whispers about me had never ceased completely. Some gossiped that I was a witch or a creature of the mists, that I had cast a glamour over myself and fed my husband poisons to capture his heart, that I'd cursed a woman with death to steal her bright-eyed babe for myself. Why would a man like him ever take her for a wife, they say. If she were a fairy, she would have picked a prettier face to wear. Her eyes are like coal. How true, aren't they dreadfully lifeless? They were foolish and petty, but more right than they knew. And just perhaps there was more truth to their cruel words than I'd first thought. And what if it was not death that would part me from him? What if he cast me aside? My beloved was like the sun, radiant, giving warmth to all he touched, ever ready with a bright smile or kind word. Laughter and music were like breathing to him. It was hard to pull a smile or song from my mouth in contrast. But was that any fault of mine? If he smiled so easily, didn't that mean the ones he gave me were less precious, less meaningful, less special? Why should you smile for anyone but me? Why should you sing for anyone but me? You're at the widow's house often, I say, seeing him pack his doctor's bags and head for the door. The collar of his shirt, the one I'd mended for him, sits crooked around his neck. I straightened it for him, wondering briefly if my body would have the strength to strangle him if I needed to. "Her boy isn't doing well," he replies. His voice sounds so distant, mired with concern. Was he worried for her child, or for her? My beloved had given a beautiful eulogy when her partner passed, and oh, how prettily she cried. She had a loveliness that not even her reddened eyes nor disheveled braids could lessen. He handed her his handkerchief, the one I had stitched for him, painstakingly, with bell-shaped flowers and green leaves, the one that matched his hair and eyes. How could something I gave you be so easily handed away? When I thought of her face, with her glossy locks and fair skin and bright eyes, who looked so lovely even as she wept, her lively young son clinging to her skirts, her healthy child who ran and laughed like children should, I wanted to bleed the iron dry from them both. When I saw my plain face and stringy red locks in the creek's surface, when my son, still so small for his age, cried or fevered or would not eat, I wanted to tear off my own skin. Were you only concerned in a doctor's sense of duty? Or was there something else?
Whatever do you mean, darling?
I didn't realize I'd spoken my thoughts aloud. I don't remember what I said, what I accused him of, what words I cried, then screamed at him. Only the misery I felt and the growing anguish written on his face. I wanted to hurt him. I wanted him to feel what I did, to hurt like I did. It was because of him I felt this pain. It was because of him that I knew joy. But it was because of him that I now suffered so much in my heart. Suffered from the knowledge that I would have to lose him. And I could not utter a word of it to him. For he was human, and I was not. He was gloriously and joyfully alive, and I was only half living, one half of my heart above the ground, the other buried beneath the earth. He was alive, and I was not, and time would only tear him away from me. I would be gone, and he would replace me with someone more beautiful, more devoted, a better mother, a happier wife. And then I would wither away in his memories, and nothing that remained of my love for him would be left. I could not bear the thought of anyone else at his side, any other person on this earth receiving his brightest smile, his tenderest care, his tenderest caress. The thought of his hands encased in gloves, knitted by another, fingers entwined around another's. He was mine. He belonged to me. Why couldn't he remain mine? Why did I have to let him go? Why did I have to go back to being alone? He could not offer the words to comfort me because he did not know the depths of my anguish, nor did seeing the pain mirrored in his expression bring me satisfaction. I should die, I think I told him. I should die if you ever leave me. I shall hurl myself off the cliffs. That is when he held me so tightly, I thought I would burst.
I beg of you, don't speak such words to me.
If you die, I shall follow. If I lose you, I lose everything I have. Whatever harm may befall me, I can endure. But to see you or our child hurt, my soul could not bear it. What a fool I'd become, I realized. Foolish and jealous and flawed, almost as if I really were human. I was so tired then, I should have apologized, but I simply collapsed onto the floor and cried. Then I promised him I would not speak those words again. He kissed my brow and stroked my hair, and then swore to me in turn. I love you so much, Zin. I'll always love you. I'll never leave your side. Not until the day I die. That's enough talk of dying today. I say, my throat dry. I've made you late. I've made you late. Be on your way. He sweeps me back and kisses me until I am out of breath before he does. Later that night, as I wait for his return, the sheep in their pen, our son dozing on my lap, supper growing cold in the pot, do I realize the gravity of what he'd said. If you die, I shall follow. If I lose you, I lose everything I have. I don't know whether to be happy or afraid. I knew I would soon have to die. I would have to leave this place. But did I have to leave him behind? Did you truly mean your words? His steps are so quiet. His steps are so quiet. I don't hear him come up from the path until he swings open the gate. I rush to meet him by the door. The devastation on his face stops me dead in my tracks. 330 years ago. The boy's cough had turned to something much, much worse. Gabriel, please, we should leave too. You can't save everyone here. You should take our son and go, my love. I'll write to my father's relatives. Not without you. Never. I should be dead. I should die here, not you. Please, I beg, falling to my knees before him. He lowers himself down to my height, holds me in his arms, and says in that voice ever gentle, ever soothing, "This is my duty, my love. I can't leave when there are people I can save. I'm different. Our child needs saving. He needs his father. He'll have you." No, 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 he won't. I want to scream. He'll hate me. He'll never call me Mama again if he finds out what I am. Why are you so willing to give your life for the sick and helpless? Why won't you live for me? You said you would never leave me. Zen, please. I love you. I love you and our boy more than anything on this earth. But how could I be a man worthy of you if I ran away from the oath I swore to keep? You are a knight's son through and through. I realized then that he is my everything, but I am not everything to him. I am simply a girl whose heart you can break whenever you please. I should throw this body away and see what you think then. How you'd regret your words once you'd lowered me into the grave. I thought suddenly of my true face, my true self, lying in the ground. It felt so very long ago when she was I, and I was she. I scarcely thought of her as myself any longer. Perhaps it did not matter whether he foolishly threw his life away. Perhaps there was another way. A way to keep him by my side, forever. Damn death or time or fate. If he won't go, then I must stay too. Darling, remember what I swore to you, in sickness and in health, until death parts us. This too is my duty. You are mine, always, but I too am yours, no matter what happens. He closes his beautiful eyes. We can't let our child be orphaned again. He needs you. He needs his living parent, you fool. We won't. No, I will not lose him either. Our son leaves with a wagon of other children and stone-faced families for a province to the south. He has to be torn from my arms. My beloved hands him with tears in his eyes to that lovely young widow whose face I wanted to steal. How protectively she holds my little boy. How fiercely she swears to me to guard him. How brave and noble she looks, carrying another's child to safety, even as she mourns a family of her own. I should hate her even more. But my heart is too full of misery and helplessness for more bitter resentment. He is so small and frail. What will he do when he wakes in the arms of a stranger? With neither of us by his side to hold him, sing to him, soothe him? Will he remember me? Will he think I abandoned him? Will he hate me for it? As long as you survive, as long as you grow up healthy and hale, you can despise me all you wish. When you are grown, I will find you again, my love, my lamb. I did not birth you. I feasted on your kin. But I am, and always will be, your mother. Late in the night, my beloved pores over books, texts, treatises, searches for anything at all that might offer a cure. I stay by his side as the candles burn, tirelessly preparing remedies to soothe the pains, herbs to mask the rot, incense to cleanse the pyres of bones, charred and bodies burned. Gabriel, please, you be of no help to anyone if you collapse. He sways unsteadily. I try to pull his tall frame into his chair. He falls against it and pulls me with him onto his knees. There he holds me for a long, long time. You're always right, my love. He rests his head back in his seat, and within seconds he is sound asleep. Unable to move him, I bring a blanket of heavy wool and cover him as best I can. I lay down alone in our bed that night. It had always felt so narrow, but now it is impossibly vast and empty without him. The rot has crept up his arm. It eats at his right hand, covering his fingers in dark and foul splotches. His face contorts in pain when I change his bandages. It's no good. It's better I lose this arm than try to save it. My handwriting was hardly legible anyway. He tries to laugh through gritted teeth. How can you smile at a time like this? We unearth his father's sword from his chest beneath our bed. Its steel blade still glistens. I had always wondered why he maintained it, this beautiful, deadly thing forged to kill. Perhaps he knew it would someday have its use. It didn't save him. His stump begins to rot as well, and soon the rest of his body follows. His vision goes first. His right eye becomes filmy and swollen. He coughs, and he coughs, and he coughs, and he coughs, iron and phlegm escaping his pale lips. I have not had human blood in so long. The healthy have fled, the sick taste of bitter ash. My body at last is fading alongside his. I knew I was playing a cruel game, but fate had to be crueler still. He was so full of life, and kindness and love. His time could not end here. There was so much more he could do, so much he could give. These were the reasons I gave myself afterward. A list of causes, noble and benevolent. Yet in the present, in those awful dying moments, the only truth in my heart was that I could not let him slip away from me. I could not bear to walk this world alone, walk this world without him. I would hold on to you for eternity and never let you go. He lies unmoving on a straw mat, barely recognizable as human beneath his bandages. The incense burning in the room does little to mask the stench of rot and dying flesh. Somehow he clings to life. The slow, haggard sound of his gasps, the faintest movements of his rib cage, the only proof he still breathes. His throat too thick with phlegm and blood to do anything but gag on the water I offer him. His remaining eye, once bright as spring, stares out, hazy and unfocused, unable to meet mine. But I know he can hear me. I sense that I am by his side, and he can hear me, sense that I am by his side. I cradle his bandaged face, sing softly to him as I hold what's left of his remaining hand, and wait for the last breath to leave his lips. Only then do I leave his side and walk with what little strength remaining in my borrowed bones to the place deep in the woods where I buried myself. I attach a new arm to his flesh, sew new fingers to his hands, stitch new nails to each one. I stitch closed his wounds, working as carefully as my impatience allows. My hands were always deft in my borrowed form, but compared to my own skin, may as well have been a child's clumsy fingers. Such freedom is like stretching my wings after being cocooned. I cannot wait to share this feeling with you, my love. I do the best I can with what I can scavenge, sighing as I work. A habit of being alive. What need did I have to breathe now? Oh, how I wished I could find another eye so green, the color of spring leaves. But this cold, dark one will have to do. cut away his old skin, stretch a new one over his flesh, and stitch him tight until he is perfect, ashen, flawless, save for the crooked crescent moon I carve into his wrist. From my heart I give him my life blood, my ichor. Into his marble lips I pour iron from my discarded body's veins. Then I wait and watch as his eyes flicker open. I cradle his head against my chest, my fingers entwined around his wispy silver locks. "Welcome back, my love," I whisper. His body is still for a moment, at rest in my arms. Then his eyes go wide. Suddenly, he pushes me back, staring at me in confusion and panic. "What happened? Who? My wife? Where is she?" "Darling, it's me, your Zen." Recognition does not light up in his eyes. I had thought, foolishly, that he would know me in any form. But he was only human. He brings his hand before his face, then stops. Slowly he turns his flawless fingers over, staring at each one. I watch as his features twist in confusion, realization, and finally, horror. He jerks away from me and climbs to his feet. There, I see his fear and revulsion only grow as he scans the room. In my haste, I had not cleaned after myself. I watch as his eyes fall on the bodies, the torn flesh and skin and iron and bone. On a skull with long and once lovely red hair, its one empty socket gouged out. Then he screams and screams, and buries his face in his beautiful hands and screams again. "Who? What are you? What have you done?" He asks me a few questions and speaks few words. He does nothing but stare at the charred remains of the pyres against the sky, day and night. Stare at his hands, his perfect hands, as they are the ashen claws of a beast. He does not drink unless I force the iron down his lips. One night, after a long hunt, I return to find the house empty, his familiar form gone from his vacant seat, leaving nothing behind but the memories of the life we once shared. Autumn, 300 years ago. It was 30 years before I saw him again. He had cut his beautiful hair short, haphazardly, strands of it falling over his bandaged eye. He wore a shirt of iron rings beneath a muddy jerkin, the emblem of some lord emblazoned on it, faded and scratched from battle. On his forearms he wore hard leather vambraces, over his hands rough, worn gloves. Oh, if I had been sated then, I would have wept. I'd had 30 years to walk alone, to wash the human senses from my mind and return to the creature that I was. Cold, unchanging, unfeeling. had traveled south in search of my child. I wondered if you had done the same. I would not give him the cruel fate I granted you. I only wanted to gaze at him from a distance, wish him well, see how he'd grown. But families fleeing plague and pestilence is a story too common in these lands where the mists once fell. Nobody could recall a widow carrying a red-haired boy. My poor sweet darling was always so fragile, so frail. The journey would have been difficult for him, even without the threat of sickness. Oh, if only. On the nights that I hunted, gorged on iron, red and sweet until my heart again started to beat, the memories would come back to me. I would think of him and you. I longed for you so ardently. I wanted both to hold you and tear you to pieces, to rip the beautiful skin I'd stitched for you to shreds, to sink my fangs into your throat and watch the ichor drain from your snow-white flesh. I would curse your name and cry for you in the same breath. I would wonder if you had ever loved me as deeply, as endlessly as I'd loved you. I would cry for your return, for you were mine. You were mine. You were always mine. Then I would weep and sing myself to sleep. But even when the flow of fresh blood had gone from my veins, deep within my still heart, I still loved you. Beneath that, I resented you. But above all, I missed you so keenly, so terribly, as if a piece of myself was gone. There, standing before you in that field again, I could have fallen to my knees and wept to see what you'd become. My gentle, harmless lamb, I changed you. I turned you against your nature, forced you to hunt and maim, to take the role of a common soldier. How starved had you been? How desperate that you'd sip like a carrion crow on the bodies that littered the battlefield. I knew how much it must have tortured you. But as long as humans warred, we of the dead should never go hungry. That thought was a sharp and bitter feeling in my cold heart, a waste of the precious life given to them, if only. There you dropped to the ground and knelt at my feet. Gabriel, how I longed to hold you in my arms, caress your face. Oh, when I saw you, decades apart may as well have been days. I would beg your forgiveness. I would kiss your sweet lips and sigh, just as I opened my mouth to speak. I cannot walk beside you as your husband, my lady, you said. The shepherdess I love died in that village, along the man that I was. If my heart was not already dead, it would have turned to stone and crumpled away to dust. But I cannot walk alone any longer. I can't. I have no path to follow now but yours. No other purpose to serve than yours. Please, let me devote myself to you. In your voice, I had heard a lost lamb begging to be guided, to be left alone no longer, a feeling I knew all too well. Rise, sweet Gabriel. I am happy you returned to me. I only ask one thing, you replied, still kneeling. If I ever lose myself, go mad for blood, turn into a monstrous being, you must destroy me. Don't speak such words to me. Promise me. You stared at me with one green eye, pleading. Even as my true self, it seemed I could not refuse you after all. Very well, I promise. Winter present. I wake up to the sound of a crackling fire, a smoky, savory scent thick in the air. I try to stretch my limbs, but hits rough, solid wood. Strange, my side of the bed never reached the wall. The cabin, that night, the woods, the wolves, him. I sit straight up on the furs. I try to stop the pounding in my heart, a thing that should be so easy, but not when I am half alive in an unfamiliar skin. Not when I'm weak, iron-addled, filled with the lingering, crushing weight of 1,000 useless memories. At the other side of the room, he sits on the stool, tending to a large pot over the fire. Steam wafts from it, carrying the scent of boiling roots and herbs, bones and meats. Dry, bloodless meat. I try to calm my nerves. I try to remember what I came here to do. To stop a monster from harming any more innocent souls. And if that monster should be the night I made a vow to so long ago, to keep that promise. I try to shake off the traces of half-painted, worthless dreams that cloud my resolve, but their shadows linger in my heart. Perhaps it's because he's changed from the night before. Now the faintest trace of color paint his cheeks. His pale brow no longer looks so cold, the iron flowing slow, sluggish, beneath his skin as he spoons up broth into a small bowl and sets it on the table before me. Whatever creature gave its life for this meal sated him as well. You must be starving in that form, he states plainly. My stomach does rumble at the scent, but I ignore it. I stare at the bowl, then at him. I steel my mind and my voice, burying the embers that flicker in my heart like ash. Well, my hunter, what did you find? Pyres burning in the villages, families mourning their daughters, like you said. He sounds so pained, so angered. I could believe his ignorance, his innocence, but doubt still lingers in my mind. Can I believe you? You who can spin lies into songs that sound sweeter than truth? You who can pretend all the world to be my dearest prince, then look at me in revulsion when we're alone? You who swore you would love me for all your days and never leave my side, but now flee from me at every opportunity? Who are you? Perhaps the man I thought I knew died long ago. Perhaps I never knew you at all. I don't know what to be more furious about. That you tried to use yourself as bait? That you tried to ensnare me? I ignore his remark. Did you find any trace of our killer? Or is he in the room with me?
No, not yet.
He motions to the bowl.
Eat first. It will go cold if you don't.
I'm not hungry.
Don't lie to me, please.
I stare at him, trying to turn my nose from the savory scent. Will you get on your knees and beg me? That's not exactly what I was thinking was gonna be said.
Celine,
How dare you act as if you had any concern for me? You haven't given me a single kind word in centuries. You barely even look at me. But now, as soon as I wear a dead girl's skin...
Celine.
For a moment, there's no expression on his beautiful face except fury. But his fire quickly smolders away, leaving something behind in its ashes. Something that looks like anguish, hurt. He walks towards me, slowly. He crouches and drops, gingerly to his knees.
Will this make you happy?
He asks softly. No, I don't know. It's the human memories, the iron. I feel as if I'm going mad. I am the defenseless one here. Why do you look so afraid when you look into my eyes? Is this pathetic display an apology? Or a ploy to lower my guard? He slowly takes the spoon and places it in my hand, gloved fingers lingering on mine. I jerk away.
Please, will you eat what I made for you, my queen? I beg you.
I relent, only because I am famished. Slowly, reluctantly, I scoop a spoonful of the broth and bring it to my lips. It's simple, but savory, far better than a meal thrown together in the wilds has any right to be. Perhaps it is only the excitement of that long-forgotten sense returning to me. Taste. A taste that brings me back to a small house in a countryside town. Rain pattering outside the windows. A song sweeter than a lyre's note on his lips. The babe in my lap giggling as he plays with my hair. I swallow the memory as I bite down on the spoon. It tastes just like how you used to make it. He looks at me with an unreadable expression as I take another spoonful, then another. Why are you still kneeling? Get up.
I'm glad you're feeling like yourself again, he says, rising to his feet.
For a moment, his eye rests on the empty space by the bed next to me, but he quickly settles onto the low stool by the hearth instead.
Did you find what you were looking for?
What?
I know you searched through my things. They're a mess now.
They were a mess to begin with. If anything, I left them neater. I stop myself from continuing this useless conversation any further. No, my hunter. You clean after yourself well.
You seem so sure that I lured your lost victims. But how would the funeral pyres have bodies to burn if I brought them here?
Not here, then. Did you attack them in the forests?
In their homes? What are you hiding then? A secret lover? I say the words half as a jest, but didn't expect him to react so strongly. No, I never lured anyone to my bed. At least not until last night, when you saw this face. When I knew it was you wearing it. Spirits, it is a crime now to seduce my own wife? I looked down at my hands. Why did that sentence make my skin feel so warm? But I wouldn't have taken it that far. Not with that body. Of course you wouldn't. You never touched me at all. Not since you slipped another ring on my finger did you hold my hand once without those damned gloves. With the beautiful hands that I made for you. You're in another woman's skin, Celine. If I wanted to. What is it that you want, Gabriel? Your pretty little shepherdess is never coming back. Ooh. Why do you keep coming back? Why do you return to me if you despise me so? Why become my consort in the first place? Why couldn't we just stay at arm's length, the way we were? Lady and knight, shepherdess and lamb, a love that burned once but was destined to smolder into cold white ash. Not this lie, not this tale we wrote for the world. Take heed before ye iron bleed, for the ashen prince will come for thee. With heart of stone and cloak of snow, where the mist queen wanders, he shall go. Why couldn't I let you go? Why does that thought, even now, tear me into 1,000 pieces? I don't despise being at your side. Liar. I only wish you would listen to me for once. He stops, lips frozen, mid-sentence like a statue. Then, without a sound, he cranes his head as if trying to hear something above the winter wind. What is it? He motions for me to be quiet. I'm not finished. I don't have to listen to you. But some instinct in my half-living heart bids me indulge him. I sit very, very still. All of a sudden, it's vividly apparent to me how much sound I make with a warm, living body. How blood pounds through my ears as I struggle to breathe as quietly and shallowly as I can. All the while, my hunter sits, still as marble, cold as stone. Then, with a sweep of his cloak, he rises from his stool. I hear it too now. Footsteps crunching through the snow, drawing nearer. Flicking his head towards the bed, he signals me to hide. I slip myself as best I can beneath the uncomfortably cramped space as I watch his footsteps approach the door. My heart feels like it's in my throat. My living, human instincts scream at me to run. But I do not. I wait and wait. Until from the other side of the wooden door comes a slow, simple knock. I hold in my breath as my hunter slowly swings open the door. The wind whistles as the snow makes its way inside the cabin, but my hunter does not move. He stands so still. He makes no sound at all, save a small, sharp breath. Who is it? Why won't you say anything? Celine? What? And then in a sing-song voice, a familiar voice, an impossible voice, the intruder speaks. What's wrong, darling? Are you surprised to see me, my sweet Edmian? Won't you invite me inside?
What the heck? What's going on here? Bro, what? No, wait. No, I need to know more. No, you can't do this to me. No, what the heck? What does this mean? What does this mean? Hold on. No, I desire more. Please, no.
Darling, don't you recognize me? It's me, your sweet Zen.
What the frack? Hold on. Wait. What? Hold up. What's going on? What? Huh? Wait. Huh? What? Yo, what the frack? But where's Celine? I'm guessing the Mist Queen isn't the only one who can take others' forms. Someone else can take the Mist Queen's form, like her body. Is that what I'm gathering? That was a twist I was not expecting. Okay. I'm hooked. I gotta play more. Oh my gosh. When is this thing? When does this come out? Let me see. To be announced. No. No, please. I need to know more. Dang it. How long am I gonna have to wait? Don't make me wait long, please. Oh my gosh, that was nice. Oh my gosh, please. Don't make me wait forever. I need to play more. I really like that. I really did. I'm gonna say right now that I'm not gonna dig too deeply into this, but I'm just gonna speak my thoughts. So, she took the form of a woman who accidentally died, right? And then eventually met someone and fell in love with them and married them and had a life together for some time. She knew exactly what she was, but never once told him, in fear of him tossing her aside. And I totally get that. And I know how hard it can be to say something about yourself to someone you are very interested in, right? Someone you hold dear. You're afraid. I totally understand that. It's hard. But there's always a chance, and it can be a big chance, that they will accept who you are. And it's possible that he could have accepted her the way she was. He could have accepted her. I don't know what life would have been like afterwards. I don't know. It could have been, well, the same thing could have happened, but with stitching him up and stuff like that,
it could have been different. Maybe, I mean, I'm just like a person looking in here, not knowing like every single detail about them. But it's gotta be hard. Because he had no idea, and when he came back to life, he saw all those bodies mangled, and especially his former wife. I mean, he had no idea that Celine was inside of his wife's body. Even though Celine was his wife, but she was inhabiting someone else. I mean, he had no idea. She was obviously heartbroken, but it's all on her. She should have said something. The worst thing that could have happened was being tossed aside, which I know she wouldn't have liked. So she wanted him to live on blissfully, ignorant of her true self. But what happened after that was 30 years of loneliness? I wonder how it felt for Gabriel. What was running through his mind in those few days after, and then the years after. What did he think? How did he feel? And then we'll skip on ahead, and they apparently did get married. But he acted differently towards her, which I totally understand, because she doesn't look, doesn't sound, I'm sure, and isn't like his wife, his human wife, even though it was Celine, but she was more human in that form. But as Celine, she doesn't have those human feelings. So I think it would be kind of difficult. Even if he accepted the fact that it was her in his wife's skin, she's so different that despite her actually being his wife before, she's just a completely different person. He obviously has some sort of feelings for her, and vice versa. But man, that's kind of messy. I want to know what's going on. What has Gabriel been up to? And I would ask, why is Celine so interested in why these women are dying? But you could just chalk it up to be, well, is it Gabriel's doing because he's gone? So was she out on the hunt for Gabriel? Or was she just simply out on the hunt for whatever was preying on these girls? Was she expecting Gabriel, or was she not? I don't know if that made it clear. I might have glanced over it, but man, that ending kind of threw me through a loop. Whatever more I had in my head is just out the window. Well, anyway, I really want want to play this game more. I hate that it's a demo. Oh my gosh. Okay. You got me. You got me. This game is really nice. Oh my gosh. I love it so much. The music is beautiful. The landscapes, like the backgrounds, and just all of the artwork is so nice. I love every bit of this game. Like, I'm interested, man. Like, I want to know more. I want to know more about the lore. I want to know more about these two people. Who the frack is wearing Celine's skin? Like, what? Or maybe it is Celine, but it's both of her. Just not all of her was out of her body. I don't know. This is, I'm spewing nonsense here. This sounds just nonsense. Okay, I'm gonna end it before I just continue to babble on. That is it for Snow White Ashes. I'm going to link the game page, and within the game page, I believe it does link the Steam page. So you can click on that link and wishlist it, because it will be on Steam. And I'm definitely going to do that as well. I'm hoping it'll be released soon. I don't know. I like it, okay? But anyway, thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I hope you all have a good day. And I will see you next time. Bye. Hey, I'm recording this 10-15 minutes after finishing the game in the video. I noticed that the bonus scenes were connected to different paths that you could take, so I decided to go through and see variations of the game, and it's given me more thoughts. Going through like the completely different path that I took initially, it gave me more insight. So it made me really think. Celine is obviously selfish, right? We can get that out of the way. She is selfish. Instead of letting him die with the memories of the wife that he knew, she was selfish and wanted to keep him for herself forever. So obviously she brought him back. But she could no longer be the woman he knew her as. And she never would again. Not in his eyes, at least. And he was a doctor, right? He wanted to help people. But what she did to fix him up, she made him less of himself. Parts of him were no longer him. That is why he was wearing gloves. Because it's not him. The hands, the fingers, they're not part of him, so I understand that. Now, as to why he covers his other eye, obviously it's not his, right? But it is Zen's, who, and the woman I named. We're going with Zen, because that's what I named her. It was hers. And it could be the same story as his other body parts, and or he hides it because it's part of his wife's eye. So, so she was selfish in many ways, and she pretty much damned him to live forever hurting. And he feels like he has no option but to be with Celine, because it's way better than being alone as a monster. Because he sees himself as a monster, but he doesn't want to become a monster like Celine is. He wants to be better than that, but he doesn't want to be alone. So he has no one but Celine to lean on. But I am sure he could overcome that, and he would be better off without her. He doesn't need her. He just thinks he does. And that could be the abusive relationship part, maybe, if I'm looking into this correctly. He thinks he needs her, but he doesn't. Because if he wanted to find happiness in either love or something, I'm sure there would be someone out there who could accept him as he is and love him as he is. It's not a life he wanted. It was forced onto him. But he can't break away. He feels like he can't break away. I've only unlocked 2 out of the 3 bonus scenes. The last one that I need is Suffering. You unlock that by default if you don't meet the requirements. Yeah, I got the Celine path the first time, and then I got the Mia path. I forgot who she is exactly, but yeah, I don't remember who that is. I'm sorry. That's how bad my memory is. But those are just my thoughts. I just wanted to add it in. Like, I feel bad for both of them because she is lonely, but she also ruined a life for possibly forever, and he's done nothing wrong that I know of. I feel like he hasn't hurt anybody, so I feel like he's for the most part innocent, as long as, he hasn't hurt anybody. But I just feel bad for, I mean, I feel bad for both of them, but more for Gabriel. Celine kind of dug her grave. But I mean, I can understand, but she's in the wrong. Completely. She's definitely abusive. Just how she talks to him. Like, she's almost like she's better than him. She believes that she's better than him, but still loves him. It's a selfish love. But yeah, anyway, that's all I wanted to add. I'm recording this a week from when I recorded, so I edited it all. And could it be an analogy for cheating? you know how they say cheaters always suspect the other of cheating when they aren't cheating? I almost kind of felt that way as I was watching it over again. Because there's no reason to believe Gabriel has done anything. And for all we know, there could be others like Gabriel. I think there are, if I remember what was being said earlier on in the demo. But yeah, I can kind of see it. Like you can see I feel like the plague is an analogy for being consumed by the relationship he's in. I know it wasn't bad in face value, but everything was a lie. So it was a relationship built on lies. So it consumed him, and she made him into something, just changed his life completely, where he just wasn't the same after the initial. Sorry, my child's playing Minecraft, so that's kind of loud. But I totally forgot what I was gonna say, but I think y'all can kind of figure it out from what I was trying to say. Yeah, I just wanted to add that stuff. It there's a lot of stuff in my head, and I can't articulate properly right now, but yeah, it's definitely made me think, and I can't wait for the full release because it's only going to expand and show more. I have some theories about the other Celine and then his former wife kind of deal. I have some theories, but I'm gonna keep that to myself. So yeah. Anyway, bye for realsies.